As a new week begins and some teams begin rookie face-off tournaments and prospect camp getting underway. Welcome in everybody on another beautiful September the 8th, 2025. It is already episode 15 of Puck Talk live and in full for the next 2 hours here on the ETV Network, brought to you by Playback. She is Jen Kate joining us out in New York. Yours truly, Callum McClurg here in San Diego, talking all things hockey between 6 p.m. Eastern and 8 o'clock Eastern time here today. Jen, we are finally here. We've got some teams beginning their prospect camps. Prospect tournaments are getting underway over the course of the weekend, getting closer to the regular season starting. More importantly, two guests are going to join us as well within the next couple of minutes to talk all things Devils and Rangers tonight. But Jen, as always, happy Monday. Good to see you. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Yeah, we got a laundry list of things that we're going to talk about, but I want to just tease something really quick. The jersey conversation we're going to have later. Yeah, that happened. Don't worry, it happened. No one ever who I don't know who asked for it. Nobody asked for it, but here we are.
But here we are exactly. So again, folks, going a lot of different directions today with all things with the NHL. Again, we'll cover the ongoing CBA negotiations. We'll also talk about the USA Hockey Hall of Fame. A lot of great names are going into the USA Hockey Hall of Fame. Pat Maroon's got a brand new role with Tampa Bay. As we said, the Kraken have a new third jersey that includes some elements stolen away from the Vegas Golden Knights. The
That no
Hurricanes
one
have a
asked
new
for.
the Hurricanes have a brand new road jersey, and some teams like Montreal and the Rangers and the Bruins are all turning 100 years old this season, if you can believe that. So plenty of room for discussion today. So if you're joining us live via the YouTube or even the playback stream, you can of course hit us up live in the chat box, or of course drop your takes on YouTube. We'll use it too as a mailbag as the season does move on. Also, Jen, more importantly, we talked about this a little bit as well on Sunday during the course of the NFL Sunday that was going on. But Jen, we have a date locked in now for the Puck Talk Fantasy Hockey League draft coming up here in about a week or two. I'm very excited to get this off the ground and running.
Yeah, so it's happening. Finally, we finally got a date settled out. We got a time settled out. So, just a heads up for anyone who watches Puck Talk pretty religiously. Uh, the draft will be replacing Puck Talk for just that week. The episode will be back to normal the following week. It's just a 1 week little thing. It'll start at Puck Talk's regular start time of 6 p.m. Eastern on Monday, September 22nd. We'll have tons of friends here with us. I'll introduce everybody once we get to that point. There's a lot of people I could name right now, and I'm not going to. There's a whole laundry list of things I have to go do for that, so that's fun. Yeah, but no, it's gonna be a good time. We have two interviews tonight, which I don't know why I double booked myself, but here I am double booking for every show pretty much. So fun for us, Callan.
Yeah, so we're gonna be. By the way, for those wondering, we're gonna have Neil, the lead host of the Devil State of Mind podcast, talking all things New Jersey Devils. We'll ask him about New Jersey's offseason, the coaching staff updates. We'll also ask him about the young core again. We know that Jen and I are very much of the belief that if Jack Hughes does not suffer that shoulder injury, they're probably in the playoff mix last season. And then also talk a bit more about Luke Hughes' ongoing contract situation. Then we'll also have Jeff joining us from the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast, talking all things New York Rangers about the offseason, of course, the trade that was made of Chris Kreider coming to the Ducks. We'll also talk about Mika Zibanejad's future in the Big Apple and also about the Rangers turning 100 years old. So all that is coming up within the next couple of minutes with both Neil and Jeff as well for Devils and Rangers talk here today on Puck Talk episode 15 from now until 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. Jen, as we do, in fact, get close to the first interview, though, but it's kind of in a way, though, update folks on the CBA. Again, we had a video put out last Tuesday about where things kind of stand right now. There's some things that will go into place this season. There is some stuff that is still kind of up for debate right now regarding the American Hockey League, maybe adding a rule about one 19-year-old player can come and play and not go into junior hockey. We have the LTIR relief. Also, salary cap reasons for the postseason. Also, we have some things as well with post-trade deadline standard recalls from the minor leagues. We've talked about the dress code, the 84-game season, a shorter preseason coming as well in 2026, 2027, with the new deal taking place in September of 2026. So, Jen, what do you kind of like right now with what the league has put out, though? Again, we've talked about, the playoff salary cap being a major talking point. LTIR abuse also being a thing. Yes, hello, Mr. Mark Stone in Vegas.
That's
So
one
Jen,
joke.
but Jen, I mean, I think I've said this to a couple times is that, and I will keep hitting this ball off the driving range like I'm Happy Gilmore. The NHL, I think, has learned from their past mistakes of the past 20 plus years. Again, I think though that when you look at the league though between the mid 90s when Gary Bettman becomes commissioner, then obviously we know about the 04-05 season where again the whole year's wiped out. All the players are playing in the East Coast Hockey League or the WCHL or the AHL or playing overseas. I recall, I think I shared the story about the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, who I think had like a major stacked roster because all the NHL guys got a free year basically to play in the American Hockey League, and they went on some big run to win the Calder Cup that season. But like I said, though, I think that the league, the Board of Governors, the 32 clubs, and the Commissioner's Office, and even the NHL Players Association, Jen, they have done a masterful job of learning from past mistakes. I wish to hell that baseball would be able to do this and not bicker about money and length of seasons and stuff. So, Jen, out of everything that we have talked about, though, regarding this new CBA that again will start up again September 2026, what key components of the CBA are you fully for? I know that I think we both agree, though, about maybe the dress code being a little bit relaxed, either to the arena, away from the arena, or I think more importantly, a longer regular season and not as many preseason games come next season.
Yeah, obviously the one we didn't mention that we mentioned in a previous episode, I think almost a month and a half ago, almost now. The neck guards. Obviously,
Yes.
neck guards are going to be mandatory for all new like rookies entering the league starting next season, and will be grandfathered in for the rest of the league, having played more than one game in the NHL, which is pretty much everybody at this point. And but no, that's so important because again, that goes back to player safety, and we've unfortunately seen this time and time and time again, and it's very unfortunate. Again, nobody's fault when these things happen; they're just freak accidents or something goes wrong. But I love that rule. I also love the tightening of the LTIR rule because hi, Mark Stone. I have to say that every show that we talk about this.
It will be on a shirt eventually.
I swear it's coming. But no, those are I think the two best rules that they have right now. I mean, the longer season, shortened preseason. I mean, I think everyone can get behind that. I don't think it's the biggest rule, but I definitely think everyone's behind it because again, preseason really doesn't mean anything because you're doing pretty much the same thing in rookie camps and training camps and tournaments and prospect tournaments and all these things. It's pretty much the same thing. So why do you need 7, 8, 9 preseason games when you could get hurt in that season and your season's done anyway? And it's not even like the games mean anything at that point. So you're basically screwed out of luck.
I would wish, and I've thought for a long time, Jen, that though I understand the rigors of the preseason because you've got everybody in camp. You've got East Coast Hockey League guys. You have your prospects that will be in the American Hockey League. You probably bring a couple free agents in that are just camp invites, like, the whole thing with baseball about, they're, invite to spring training, But like you said, though, is it just feels so long. Like, I mean, it kind of is what it is, though, when you're trying to evaluate talent, seeing if guys can play at this level, stuff like that. And again, you risk the injury. Uh, one thing though that I do think, Jen, I think though this is probably more from my perspective of being in the game and working in the sport because I see this happen a lot though, Jen, and I'm glad you brought up the neck guard argument because football and hockey have now gone the route of if your helmet comes off, you need to leave the field for a play in football, or you have to come off the ice and you can't keep playing without your helmet like you could way back in the day. Now that becomes a penalty. I, for one, wonder though, Jen, eventually, because I see this a lot though in the AHL, where guys lose their neck guards and they keep playing because the helmet's still on. I do wonder eventually if that becomes like a subheading or subsection of the neck guard rule that maybe eventually that they'll have to ratify a ruling, much like the helmet rule. If the neck guard comes off, you have to also leave the ice and get it back on somehow, some way. But I think away from maybe that small little blip on the radar, um, I don't see how the league loses here. I mean, we're going to get the longer season next year. We get the reduced preseason. Again, we've got the LTIR relief. We've got that your roster needs to be, up to the salary cap in some way. The deferred money salary is also going away after this season concludes. And I think long-term deals go from 8 to 7 years. So I think there's just a lot here, I think, Jim, that the league got right. Some things that will probably get tweaked as the next year begins and goes forward. But I think, again, this is a window, Jen, for the league because this continues a very great run of success where you don't have the bickering a la Major League Baseball with their ongoing labor dispute like the NHL has already learned from in their past mistakes.
Yeah, also, the one we forgot to mention that you and I briefly talked about that we both really liked, the e-bug situation.
That too, yes.
The e-bug thing, having a goaltender on hand in case both goaltenders get hurt is an excellent thing. I don't think this actually hurts the league. I actually think it helps the league severely. I know fans will disagree with me. Oh, it's supposed to be whoever's next in the call-up. Right. But at the same time, you need to have somebody in the building so they're not running in half blue, half whatever, because it's the only colors they have around them. Just like when Dave Ayers went in, they haven't changed his clothes because he was wearing the other team's colors because it's all he had on him. So I like this rule. I actually like that they're actually going to get actual NHL equipment and not just whatever they have in their hockey bag. So they're actually going to get like real deal like NHL equipment. They're going to be traveling with the team. So not only will these goaltenders who are not technically in the league will get to travel like they're in the league, spend time with the players, will be on the planes with them. So I think this is just a really cool opportunity. I just like this because I think it's cool.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, because, and I think, Jen, you probably know that from my experience too in the American League, it's hard sometimes to get a guy called up if you're, again, for the longest time when all the West Coast teams had their affiliates on the East Coast, it was so hard usually to get a guy called up in time, catch a flight like first thing in the morning, get out to the West Coast. Now, again, all that's kind of changed. But that is a huge thing that I think will also, in a way, give some franchises, I think more and more importantly, I think all the clubs, though, I think, Jim, will probably have a nice sigh of relief of like, you're not going to be put in like that bind, in years past where you're not able to probably get someone, to play goal. Again, you have the David Ayers situation or the Chicago situation, the Scott Foster situation that took place where again he pitched the shutout. Here he's an e-bug that obviously David Ayers became a folk hero, for the Carolina Hurricanes against the Maple Leafs. Obviously he had the maple leaf colored mask and the pads wearing the Hurricane red and the black. So that's going to be so crucial and such a huge relief again for franchises going forward into next season. For once the new CBA does kick in as well. Jen, are we ready for our guest, or we want to move on to the Hockey Hall of Fame for USA Hockey?
No, I think we're about ready for our guest, because I think we're going to cut it close on time because we do have another, as we said, we have two guests, so we're going to be cutting it close on time. We can kind of do it in between a little bit. So
perfect.
Let's welcome Neil onto the show. Let's get him in here. Let's talk a little bit of Devils hockey because I think their situation is very interesting. So I think he'll bring a lot of insight to our show and kind of what's going on in Devils land. So let's see if we can get him on. I know I forgot to mention this. So
yeah, and again, this is a regular. This is like sad trauma for me from last Thursday on Press Row trying to get Christine Brennan on the show. But as we await Neil from, again, the Devil State of Mind podcast joining us here momentarily, again, Jen, New Jersey is just a fascinating team. Again, I love the core. I love what they've done. But like we said, though, and you really hate to kind of say this so many times because it just felt so unlucky about Jack Hughes in the hit in the boards that, again, he wiped out, hit his shoulder the wrong way. That knocks him out of the season. More importantly, it knocks them out of the playoff running, though. But what they have, though, again between Jack and Luke, Nico Hischier, Andre Palat being there, that there's just a lot going right for them. They're just in a very difficult division. As we do, in fact, folks, welcome on our good man. It is our good man, Neil, joining us from the Devil State of Mind podcast. Neil, thanks again for taking the time. It's Calvin here in San Diego. Jen joining us in New York. Neil, welcome on board, my friend, and thanks for being here tonight to talk some Devils hockey.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. This is a very cool experience, and any opportunity that I have to talk about the New Jersey Devils, especially at this time of the year with training camp coming up in about a week, I'm always looking forward to it. So thank you guys for having me on today.
Yeah, without a doubt. Again, Jen's been working her ass off to get guests on throughout the course of the off season. Neil, I guess I kind of want to get this point out of the way because Jen and I have talked so much about New Jersey and just like the unfortunate luck of Jack Hughes getting injured at the very end of the season. They were like right there, wild card. Number three, possibly. Then losing Jack really obviously set the team back a bit. Maybe Neil, from your perspective, I know it's tough to probably pinpoint like, well, this is the reason why we didn't make the playoffs, but your overall thoughts about how the Devils looked after the Hughes injury, because it really looked like it really brought the team down in some way, shape, form, or size.
Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll explain more as I'll take it a step even further back. You have to go back to basically January 1st is when the Devils really started to have their problems because for as much that the Devils did in the first half of the year, it was completely that their top six scoring was overshadowing the fact that they had no scoring depth. And once the top guys started to struggle and we were only scoring 1 or 2 goals a game, it became very obvious that the team was not fully where it needed to be. And injuries didn't help that situation. And Jack was in the middle of in a struggle when he got hurt. So the fact that he went from struggling to then having a season-ending injury on the same shoulder that he injured not too long ago was kind of the icing on the cake. So really, everybody can say that, oh, it's injuries, this, injuries, that. And while that is true, the reality also is that the Devils just didn't have enough depth to get them where they needed to go. Other guys in the top six eventually stepped up. Nico Hischier had a career year. Jesper Bratt had a record-breaking season, setting the new franchise record for most assists in a year. Timo Meier, especially in the month of March, with it being, Meier Madness, as we call it in New Jersey. All those guys stepped up. But at the end of the day, when you're relying on guys like Eric Holla, Nick Bastian, Daniel Sprong, Cody Glass to try to get you consistent depth scoring, especially when you get into the playoffs, that's a recipe for disaster. And all those guys except Cody Glass are no longer on the team at this point because, again, the team needed to get better with depth scoring. But certainly not having Jack Hughes in the lineup again on a consistent basis is going to hurt this team. And that's the unfortunate part because this team, for whether people want to agree with it or not, is built around Jack Hughes. And that's really the very frustrating thing is that this team is not built enough to withstand Jack getting hurt for even just a couple of games without having issues. So, yeah, I would say lack of depth scoring and injuries were the two biggest downfalls. And also a lack of aggressiveness from general manager Tom Fitzgerald. And, I think it's fair to say that his job to some degree is certainly on the line with this season, because I think if you don't take a step, ahead and really get going here, and especially with the contracts that we have and the team that we have, I think changes are certainly on the horizon.
One would probably think so, especially with kind of where maybe expectations go. So I guess, Neil, to kind of maybe further go down that rabbit hole, from your perspective, overall thoughts on the offseason moves that have been made. This might be a three-part question, though. So maybe, a grade for what they've done so far over the offseason. Enough in your mind to close the gap on some of the top teams in the conference, but is there also any lingering concerns you have about the Devils heading into training camp starting sometime soon?
Yeah, I think the Devils certainly added some depth scoring by bringing in guys like Connor Brown and of getting Dadonov, and you finally get your young prospect Arseny Gritziuk over from the KHL, who there's a lot of hype around him in the hope that maybe he can be kind of the solution on the top six, but there's two still glaring holes in this lineup. Well, there's actually three. One is you still need another top six winger. And I know that the Devils have quote unquote tried to acquire said top six winger. I know they were in on Jared McCann and the Kraken said no, at least at this time. So that still needs to be filled. You still need a third line center. And whether you're going to move Cody Glass to the third line, which I really would rather not, I would rather they find someone else. Maybe you put Dawson Mercer there instead of in the top six. And the biggest thing that I'm sure you guys were going to bring up anyway is the fact that even today, Luke Hughes is still yet to be signed to any form of a contract, and that is still very frustrating. I'll get into that in a little bit, but I think the Devils have done a few decent things. Is it enough to close the gap? No. I think that it's fair to say the vibe around New Jersey is one of great caution and also not as much optimism as maybe some others on the outside would think, because the expectation is very high in New Jersey. Fans want to see this team take the next step. They're tired of this team getting beat up, getting hurt, and making the playoffs but not going very far, or not making the playoffs at all, and really, quite frankly, embarrassing themselves. And the time is now. The time is now to, take advantage of this. And that's where the lack of confidence that the majority of the fan base has in Tom Fitzgerald, because he hasn't done the necessary things. He's put the Devils in a tough spot with the salary cap, giving out no trade and no move clauses like they're candy. It's been very frustrating. So I think that they've made some solid moves. I think for the most part, what you see on the roster is what you're going to get, at least to start the year. And, it's just more of a matter of we have to wait and see how it all comes together once training camp, preseason, and eventually the regular season gets underway. But there is still more work to be done. And I expect more work to be done certainly before training camp, because you still need to sign Luke Hughes, but also as some of the other holes I mentioned, top six winger, third line center, that's probably going to come later on in the season.
Neil joining us here from the Devil State of Mind podcast on episode 15 of Puck Talk on ETB, presented by Playback. Again, Neil, you're just leading me right down the golden brick road, my friend, again, because you just brought up about Luke Hughes again. He's seeking that long-term extension that aligns with Jack's contract. And Jen and I may have talked about this last week or the week prior, that, who's not to say that they both, in a way are in the ear of the front office to keep, both of them together, maybe even lure, Quinn possibly out of Vancouver to join them in New Jersey. But, I know, Neil, you had some thoughts about the situation. So with that said, what is your take on the ongoing contract negotiations with Luke Hughes with the Devils in your mind?
Well, I like to constantly give credit to one of my good buddies in Jim Berenger of Full Press Hockey. He's done a great job of giving me a lot of insight as to what's going on with the Luke Hughes situation. And I'll repeat what he told me and what I've said on social media numerous times, which people have seen clips of late, is simply that both the Devils and Luke Hughes' team want to get this done. It's not a matter of Luke doesn't feel like he doesn't want to be in New Jersey or anything like that. There's just all these different options on the table. Now, the one that everybody kind of reacted to was the whole 5-year deal that makes him a free agent, unrestricted, at the same year that Jack Hughes' contract comes up. There is not substance to that. That was an idea that was thrown out there. That was a suggestion that this is one of the ways we could go about this. But I think if you're Pat Brisson, who's the agent of both of these guys, I think if you go down that path, I don't know how you're going to convince one team to be able to have enough cap space, even with the salary cap going up, to sign both of those guys to max level contracts. I think it's very hard to see that happening. Really, where the Devils are at right now is one of two things. Either one, they sign Luke to a 2 or 3 year bridge deal that will make him an RFA in 2 or 3 years. And the only difference with the RFA the second time around is that he is offer sheet available. Right now, he currently is not, because he hasn't played enough games to be offer sheet available. So that would not be the best thing, because obviously then you still have that risk. The long-term deal is more, I think, what the Devils would prefer. And that makes sense, because then you are establishing that he is part of that core. He is part of the long-term plans of this Devils team. And they're looking at 7 to 8 year deal in terms of that. What Pat Brisson and Luke Hughes' team are trying to do is capitalize on max dollars. Because with the salary cap continuing to go up, that just means that there's more opportunities to get that much more money. So it's not necessarily that it's not a case of the Devils have to really convince Luke Hughes to stay here long term. It's that if the Devils are going to give him that long-term deal and they're going to agree on it, it has to be in the $8 to $9 million range. And currently the Devils have just over $6 million in cap space. Salary has to be moved. And there's a couple ways you could do it. Number one, you could put Jonathan Kovacevic, who's not going to be ready to start the year, on LTIR, and you can earn about $4 million in cap space, and that'll get you about to 10. So then if you wanted to do an 8, 9, AAV per year deal, you can do it. And then you kick the can down the road when it comes to moving contracts and salary later on in the year. Or you do things like what has been talked about numerous times this offseason, particularly with Andre Palat. He has about $6 million left on his contract per year for the next 2 years. The problem that people are forgetting is that he has a 10-team no-trade clause. And it is very likely that the teams that are on that list are the most likely teams that would take the salary that Andre Palat is getting. I have a very tough time believing that Andre Palat doesn't have San Jose as an example, or Anaheim, or teams like that, where you could just do it. Because if there was if they didn't have a no trade clause, that would have been done weeks ago, maybe months ago. It would have been done. We wouldn't even be talking about it. But that's the difficulty with all of it. Tom Fitzgerald is trying to make a deal, and there's a lot of talking between Tom Fitzgerald and Andre Palat and things like that. And it's very obvious that the Devils recognize that it was an overpay. It was a mistake to bring in Andre Palat. I've mentioned before, he was the backup option to the Devils not getting the late Johnny Gaudreau in free agency a few years back, because that was the overall plan. That was the goal when free agency started, and Palat was the backup option. So all this comes back to, and if you do move Andre Palat's contract, you move it in full, then you're going up to 12, nearly $13 million in cap space, and you could do a long-term Luke Hughes deal in the shade. You could do it without any issues. So that's where we're at. That's really the reality of the situation. But I will say this, and I've said it numerous times. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Once one thing happens, it's a domino effect. Everything else will happen. If the Devils make a move and they trade somebody, or they buy, or they put Kovacevic on LTIR, that is the telling sign of this is where we're going to go. And I don't even think you could do a 2 to 3 year bridge deal of $6 million and feel comfortable with that even in the right now, because again, you are lacking cap space. You are making this Tom Fitzgerald has made it very difficult on himself to get this done. So, the clock is ticking. We're 7, 8 days away from training camp, and still nothing has happened. And this happened last year with Dawson Mercer. It's the same thing. Dawson Mercer signed the day after the first day of training camp, and Mercer didn't really have that great of a year. Not saying it's the same thing that's going to happen to Luke, but I would, lean towards the side of caution as a cautionary tale of saying, be careful how you go about this. So that's where we're at with the Luke Hughes situation. And I know that people, like you guys mentioned again with the whole Quinn Hughes situation, the thing about it for the Devils is that there is no reason to think about or go after or attempt to acquire Quinn Hughes right now or anytime soon, because the Devils are fairly set on the back end right now. Things can change and things will change over time, but if you want to get Quinn Hughes, if you want to have a chance to get Quinn Hughes, you got to play the waiting game. You got to let it play out the way that it is. And if you get him, great. If not, it's not the end of the world. And there's other places that the Devils need to focus on right now in order to get better. So that altogether is where we are right now with Luke Hughes.
And I think it's a good update to have, though, is that they're working out numbers in some way. By the way, the term bridge deal now gives me nightmares, because I saw that with Trevor Zegras firsthand and with the Ducks, just for example. But that's kind of becoming like the new term, I guess, now for players who need to be re-signed, but they're not ready for a long-term extension just yet. Neil, last question for me before I let Jen have the floor for a bit. Thoughts about Sheldon Keefe? I know it was kind of bit of a up and down year, as you said. this past season. But thoughts about his philosophy, and is he going to be safe probably as we go as this year does begin and go forward?
Actually having the chance to speak a little bit with Sheldon Keefe, the one thing you learn is that he's a very smart individual. Like, he's very, very detailed, and he really does a phenomenal job of breaking down game by game situations and player development and things like that. Like, he has made it a point to understand this at a very deep level. And that's something I appreciate. I also appreciate just his blunt honesty. Everybody remembers the infamous, quote that he said earlier last season where he said Kovacevic needs to play better. And everybody took it the wrong way. But really what he was saying was like, everybody's got to play better. Everybody has to do better. It's not, it's not just one guy, right? It's not just one area. His philosophy is very obvious to me. He wants to be a puck possession team. He wants speed. He wants solid forechecking. And he wants a lot of guys to be able to be two-way guys. And I think it took a little bit of time for everybody to get used to that because it's different than what they experienced with Lindy Ruff. I think this year they'll be much more comfortable in that system. I think Sheldon Keefe understands and has learned a lot from his many years in Toronto. And this is just a different vibe for him, right? The media is different. He has a lot less pressure in terms of the day-to-day where he's constantly hounded by cameras and reporters and things like that. The Devils media averages between 7 to 8 media outlets. It's not like a huge amount. It's a different vibe. I've said it before. It's just a completely different vibe. It's not a bad thing by any means. It just means that it's less comparatively. I mean, everywhere is less comparatively to Toronto, as we all know. But I feel that Sheldon Keefe is a very good head coach. And I believe that he can get us to where we want to go. I think that Tom Fitzgerald has to trust him more in terms of what he feels the team needs to acquire, what he feels that needs to get out there. And I think that Sheldon is starting to slowly change Fitzgerald's kind of thinking and what he wants to try to accomplish and things like that. But now that he's entering into year 2, he's gotten through the first year. He made the playoffs, which you got to give him credit. Despite everything, they got to the playoffs. Now, got to take the next step. Got to get back in the playoffs, and you got to find a way to get over some of these teams. You gotta be consistent. You got to stay healthy, and you got to perform. And that's where it comes from. And I have faith that Sheldon Keefe is going to get this team in the right direction. I like what they did with the coaching staff. You bring in Brad Shaw, one of the most respected defensive coaches in the league, and a guy that I think has the ability to basically develop anybody into a very solid to elite defenseman. And people forget that he was given a lot of the credit for why Zach Werenski is the type of defenseman that he is now, and the development also of guys like Jamie Drysdale. This is going to benefit guys like Luke Hughes, Shimo Nemec, Seamus Casey, Anton Saleyev, and even the guys that we have, the veterans we have on the team now. I just think that the team's going to get better defensively. And we're talking about a team that was top 5 in penalty kill. So, I mean, it's going to be very good. And then with the offense, I think Jeremy Colleton, he's probably one of the better guys that I've seen when it comes to running the power play. He definitely has to switch some things up. I want to see Timo Meier on that first power play unit because I think that will be the best thing. I think it'll get him going. But I think overall, the Devils have a fairly strong coaching staff. And now it's about putting together the right game plan for this team. Because the mark of a great coach is putting your team in the best possible position to succeed night in and night out. And I feel very strongly that Sheldon Keefe can do that.
Neil, you and I, being, Rangers Devils, it's always been that rivalry of, brotherly love, whatever you want to call it. Everyone says something different. I was there live for when the opening, the line brawl happened right at the beginning of the game at
Right.
MSG. We called it the bloodbath game because that was ridiculous. Everybody was bleeding everywhere. Obviously both our teams are kind of in a very similar situation. Obviously, a lot of moves, with players being moved around, front office staff being moved. The rivalry, people have claimed it died.
Yeah,
It's the same thing. I say it with the Islanders. It's not what it used to be. The teams are going through a different phase in what they are now versus what they were 20, 30, 40 years ago
sure.
when the rules were different. Salary, obviously, everything's a little different now,
Mhm.
being, social media and, all these different things. I just want to get your thoughts on just what you think of the rivalry. Do you think it's going to be good this year? With everything, considering we've all, both our teams kind of went through a disappointing season last year where we just kind of fell apart, really. I can say for my team, like, it happened. Like, it was just the implosion happened. Everyone hated each other. No one wanted to play. It was just, all the things. Just your thoughts on the rivalry and just what you think of it as a whole.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the unfortunate things is that, we're not going to know how this rivalry is going to go this year until March. I mean, that's kind of the unfortunate thing, right? You go through the first 3-4 months of the year playing everybody else and also the Olympic break before you even
True point.
face the Rangers or the Devils for the first time. And that's really unfortunate because I think it's important. I think that's also how sometimes these rivalries end up not having the same effect because of the way the scheduling is. And again, you're not playing, you go back like 10, 15 years ago, you used to play teams in your division 6 times a year. That was different. You played them a lot. So you got to know them fairly well. If you're only playing them 3, even 4 times, and especially if you're playing them in these weird scheduling situations, I don't know if that same rivalry builds up. 2 years ago, I think the rivalry certainly took a step up with where both teams were at and the excitement of that first round. People said it was the best first round series of them all in that first round, other than obviously Florida against Boston and how that turned out. But yeah, I think the rivalry is not as much the same as it used to be. I think that there isn't as much of a level of hatred, but having guys on the team, especially from the Devils' perspective, like Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier and Bratton, guys who have had success and have made headlines against the New York Rangers, I think that adds, tension between the two. I would say to a lot of people that I think right now, a lot of the Devils' focus is more on Carolina at this moment because of the fact that they've played them now twice in the playoffs in 2 of the last 3 years. The Rangers have less to worry about with Carolina because every time they play them in the playoffs, they just seem to smack them around. That's essentially what I've kind of accepted with that. But yeah, I mean, there is a part of me that wants to see that rivalry reach a higher level again, like we saw in the 90s and the early 2000s and the early 2010s. I want to see that. But I think the way the scheduling is and also where the teams are right now, it's harder for me to see that. The fans certainly don't, they don't let up. And that's the good part, is that it's not like everybody has completely just forgotten about it. But I do think that it's lost its luster. It's similar. I'll use another good example. It's similar to the Yankees and Red Sox rivalry is not what it used to be. These guys don't hate each other. Like there is no level of anger and like pure hatred between the two sides. They just look at each other as it's just another series. I would argue that Aaron Boone thinks that a lot more than anybody does, but that's besides the point. I'm not here to talk about Aaron Boone. Otherwise, I will lose my mind. But if you have a baseball podcast that needs me to rant about Aaron Boone, let me know. I'll jump on that too.
We got a couple of them.
Yeah, let them know. I'll talk about Aaron.
We're actually doing one on Wednesday. If you want to scoop by, we're actually doing Yankees Tigers and Mets. Mets.
Yeah, let me.
Mets Phillies. So. Yeah,
keep me posted with that. But I will say, to just again kind of end what I was saying. Yeah, I do think that it's not the same. But who knows? Maybe this year it picks up, and especially because I think, and I said this on the Ranger Ed podcast last week, everybody on the Rangers sucked last year. I mean, everybody did at the same time. And I would tell this to Rangers fans that the best part for them is they can only go up from where they were. And I think that they are going to get back in the playoffs. I think they're too good not to get in. How far they go, it's too early to tell. I think that's the way. And I'd say the same thing about the Devils. I just don't know I can't confidently say anything other than I think that they are a playoff team.
All right, I have one final question for you, and then we are going to let you go.
Yes.
Just you've been a Devils fan, obviously, pretty much your whole life, pretty much, and I'm assuming you've been to hundreds of Devils games. You've seen a lot of things. Is there one moment, like being a Devils fan, that has stuck out in your mind that maybe just a little more than the rest that you can kind of tell us or like share with us?
Oh, for sure. Without question, it was St. Patrick's Day in 2009 when Martin Brodeur became the winningest goaltender in the NHL. I was there with my dad, my brother, and my cousin, and we had these green St. Patrick's Day Devils shirts. It was great. There's a great picture, and I'm rocking one of those roller hockey Devils goalie masks. It's great. And we had two sets of tickets. We had two that were in the upper deck in I think it was in the Crazies, the 233 Crazies. And then we had two behind the glass on the side that the Devils shoot twice. So that's closer to the visiting bench in case you want to kind of picture it. And they played the Chicago Blackhawks, which that was at the beginning of the Blackhawks' eventual dynasty run, right? So that was a Blackhawks team that not only made the playoffs that year, if we remember that they got to the conference finals in a year that nobody thought they were going to, do that. And they had a young Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, all these guys, right? And I went to the game before where he tied the record in Philadelphia. And my dad decided right then and there to get tickets to that game on St. Patrick's Day because we all felt that he was going to get it. And sure enough, I was down ice level when he got it done. They won the game, and he broke the record 5-5-2. It's always going to stand out. And that is a special moment for me. Marty Brodeur is the reason that I became a goaltender when I played hockey. Biggest reason I became a Devils fan when I was growing up as a kid. And with it being this past week being a goalie week, I made sure to promote the legendary Marty Brodeur as much as humanly possible. He just had his charity golf outing today. Fun fact, that helps support the Devils Youth Foundation, which is wonderful. But without question, that's the memory that will last. Secondarily, I'd probably say Henrique It's Over, and that is an iconic one. I wasn't there in person, but hearing the call from Doc Emmerich live. Again, just will forever live in my memory.
I guess, Neil, last one for me, though, involves one of the two-time Cup champs of the 90s and the early 2000s. Scott Gomez is now in the USA Hockey Hall of Fame. Again, two-time Cup champion, first Latino-born player to win the Calder Trophy as the top rookie of the year, playing in over 1,000 games. Obviously, Neil, my early hockey NHL memories are the Mighty Ducks and Devils playing that epic 7-game series in 2003, where didn't matter where you were playing, the home team won all 7 games, and I'm of the belief, and so are some fellow Ducks fans and colleagues of mine who work for the organization. Say, I mean, they're still probably playing today, and no one's won a road game yet. And obviously, you talk about Marty, you talk about Scotty Niedermayer, you talk about Jamie Langenbrunner, Patrick Eliash come to mind. But maybe, though, Neil, thoughts about Scott Gomez and what he means to the organization, and also now going into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, the Anchorage, Alaska-born winger was, he was a tremendous player, tremendous guy. He looked up to Mike Peluso, who won a cup in 95 with the Devils, and he was also from Anchorage, Alaska. Gomez was always a guy you could rely on to get you 25, 30 goals. He brought the speed, he brought the skill, and a guy that really, really you could always rely on. It's so funny because Scott Gomez is special for me because he was the first jersey that I ever got as a Devils fan. And about a week after I got it for my birthday, he left the Devils and signed with the Rangers. And that was really hard for me to that was my first lesson of the business of sports kind of thing.
Bingo.
I got rid of that jersey very quickly. It did not last very long. I could tell you that. But I'm really happy to see him in the Hall of Fame. Also, Zach Parise, former captain of the New Jersey Devils, in the Hall of Fame as well. Um, I'm really happy for both of them. They both made major contributions to this New Jersey Devils team and also to USA Hockey.
Yes.
And I'm really happy that they're in. And you mentioned Patrick Elias. I'll just say this really quickly. He for sure better get in the Hockey Hall of Fame soon because
Yes.
it's been a long time coming. And now that we finally got McGillney in, Elias is the next logical guy, at least from the Devils' perspective, who he has all of the records, and one of the greatest, if not the greatest, goal scorer in Devils history right now. He deserves to be put in that Hall of Fame because he earned it. He earned it, and so. But yeah, with Scott Gomez, really happy for him. I actually spoke to him on Instagram, congratulating him. He's coaching junior hockey right now. It is, I think it's actually his former team. I think he was actually a player on that junior team. So now he gets to be a coach as well, which is great. And yeah, no, it's awesome. So good for him. And hey, good for the New Jersey Devils too.
Yeah, always good to get guys in the Hall of Fame. Neil, as we get you out of here for the day, my friend, where can people find the Devil State of Mind podcast?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you guys so much for having me on today. Really do appreciate it. You can check out the podcast on YouTube. Just search Devil State of Mind. You can find it over there. I'm also wherever you listen to podcasts, so Apple, Spotify, everything like that. And if you do, make sure to subscribe, but also leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. Helps continue to grow the podcast. We're into season 7 now, so this is
love it.
It's been quite a long journey. I'm on Twitter at Devil State, and I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Devil State of Mind. And also you can follow me on TikTok, Neil.Villapiano. That's where I will post clips from the podcast episodes as well and just continue to get out there. And also follow my Blue Sky account, similar to Twitter. Just search Neil Villapiano and you'll find it. And yeah, that's all I got. And again, thank you guys so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. And we should definitely do this again soon.
Oh, without a doubt, once the season begins. Neil from the Devil State of Mind podcast. Neil, thanks again for the time and have a great rest of your Monday. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right. One guest down, one more to go. Again, big thanks to Neil from Devil State of Mind. Again, Jen, Devils trying to get back on the winning ways, obviously. And I think, though, more importantly, great insight, though, about where the Devils stand right now with the Luke Hughes situation. Because, again, we talked about this about a week or so ago about where they kind of were. Are they a package deal or all three of them a package deal? Obviously, I think, though, more importantly, I like hearing, though, that Neil and that Devils fans are giving Sheldon Keefe like that boost of confidence. But more importantly, like you said, though, you don't have that pressure like we talked about with the Leafs. Original 16, but more importantly, now he can kind of go to New Jersey, put in his plans and also not feel like the scrutiny or the pressure to win, like was the case with him with the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, no. Obviously, Toronto's a tough place to play and a tough place to coach, but also when you have guys like Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, all the big name guys that you got up there, obviously. Every year of them just falling short or making it there and then just never getting out of that first round. I remember when they made it out of the first round, they got absolutely crushed in the second round. And the fans were just happy they made it out of the first round for a change. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you guys. At least you made it there. You know what? You broke the curse. And now maybe you'll go win something finally. But no, I guarantee that won't happen. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, no. I think he's going to do good. The Devils, I actually forgot he was there, but crazy enough. No, I think the Devils are going to have a good year. I think the Rangers are going to bounce back, have a decent year. I think, as Neil said, the rivalry is not as strong as what it was, but I don't think it's dead. I think people who say that are mostly drunk Ranger fans who just like over exaggerate. I honestly think the rivalry, like, again, as I said, I was there for the full start of the game line brawl that took 10 minutes to clear up. Everyone's bleeding everywhere from their face. There's trainers everywhere, gloves everywhere. You had to stop the whole game, go clean up the ice, go get all the sticks off, and bring everyone their gear. And, you have 3-4 guys sitting in the penalty box on each side just to start the game.
I've been there. I've been there myself. It's crazy. And I think, though,
fun thing, though. It's fun.
Yeah, and I also think, Jen, that I think that there's a few rivalries like that. Before we get Jeff on from Mind Your Pucking Business Talk Ranger Hockey, which Jen will be leading the way for that interview here in just a few minutes, is that I feel that way though too about like Anaheim, Los Angeles, Anaheim, San Jose. That LA's kind of been, they've been like the top dog. When it came out of the rebuilding stage, that they became, out of it a little bit earlier or ahead of the curve than the Sharks and Ducks have. And I mean, LA's kind of, again, they've been like that top team recently, but at the end of the day, though, there still is that animosity. It is Anaheim, LA. They're not the same places. I'll be writing in Substack about my disdain for the NFL, about why I don't support the NFL. But at the end of the day, though, is that there still is like that bragging rights are still there. Like, who's better, New Jersey, New York? Who is it? In that way. But I do agree though that the Rangers are going this way. New Jersey's going this way. Anaheim's going this way. LA's definitely going this way. The Sharks are still here, but they are kind of, again, getting that ship pointed back up in the right way, that all these rivalries are going to get back where they once were. Jen, are we ready for our next guest, or do we want to move on to the Hockey Hall of Fame?
Well, let's move on, because I don't think he's quite here yet. I think he said 7:10 because he was getting off of work late.
All right, perfect. We can move on with that. Yeah, we can definitely move on now, Jen, and kind of talk further about the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame that announced their 2025 class. As we said, we just talked about Scott Gomez, two-time Cup champion with the Devils, and the first Latino-born player to win the Calder Trophy as the league's top rookie, also playing in over 1,000 games. We also mentioned Zach Parise, two-way forward who played for New Jersey, also with Minnesota, key member of the 2010 U.S. Olympic team that won silver in Vancouver. Joe Pavelski, longtime Shark, also in a way made his name better known with the Dallas Stars. Again, we knew him better as Captain America, defined by incredible leadership and clutch scoring. He right now holds the record for the most playoff goals by an American-born player at 74 goals, and also was a national champion at the University of Wisconsin for the Badgers. Also, more importantly, a key contributor to the hockey world for USA Hockey. Bruce Bennett, iconic photographer who has chronicled the history of the game for over 5 decades. His work also appeared in virtually every major hockey publication like Sporting News, any other hockey publication. He covered over 5,000 NHL games in six different Winter Olympic Games as well. And then on the women's hockey side, it is Kara Mounsey, two-time Olympic medalist in winning gold in '98 and silver in 2002, and a pioneering defenseman for the U.S. women's national team in the early stages of women's hockey, really kind of taking off. Jen, what a great class, again, with the players, the key contributors that have made USA Hockey what it is. Jen, more importantly, which of these inductees, and again, all of them in some way have done so, but who probably made the bigger impact on American hockey, in your opinion?
I mean, again, congratulations to every single person that's
yes,
going in.
Absolutely.
Obviously, in their own ways, they all have done such amazing things for the sport as a whole. I don't know if I could pick one, but if I had personal preference in this, it would probably be Joe Pavelski, just because of his whole career and the way he was a leader both on and off the ice. He really helped a lot of the younger guys develop and really, took a leadership role, even when, he wasn't named captain. He was acting like the captain both on and off the ice, being a leader in the locker room, helping develop young guys, always showing up with a smile on his face from what I heard. He was always in a good mood, always there to help everybody. So I really think Joe Pavelski, just his whole career, we saw him play till pretty much the wheels fell off and you couldn't go anymore. And good for him for getting in. Obviously that's a massive honor to him and his family. Obviously, he dealt with some injuries at the end of his career as well. So honestly, I love Pavelski. Obviously, we all know and love him, and he's done a lot for the sport. I think we could say the same thing about another guy we're going to talk about, Patty Maroon, Joe Thornton. All the big name guys you remember, they're still in some way, shape, and form, whether it be with an organization, youth hockey, being a part of the alumni association of those particular teams that they played for. They're in some way, shape, and form. They are some way in a role within the hockey field, doing something to progress the game even further, even though they hung up the skates years and years and years ago, some of them, and some of them just recently. And, they're all in their own way doing something special. And for me, I grew up watching Joe Pavelski, Joe Thornton. I didn't really know Scotty Gomez. He played a little bit when I was a baby, pretty much. So, but Zach Parise as well. It's another name that I recognized growing up. And, again, good on all these guys for getting in. Obviously, it's a massive honor. So good for them. Happy for all of them. They all absolutely deserve it in their own way. So, well done to everybody involved, and congratulations to every single person.
Yeah, again, any Hall of Fame is a huge honor, whether it's the Hockey Hall in Toronto, the USA Hockey Hall of Fame, the Canadian Hockey Hall of Fame. I
The New
probably,
York
Jen,
Hockey
agree with
Hall of
you a
Fame.
lot, though. I agree probably, Jim, with you about Joe Pavelski and having seen him play with San Jose. They might be one of my favorite what if teams because they came of age in the mid to late 2000s. You know, Pavelski, Rob Blake at the end of his career, Joe Thornton, obviously, Devin Setaguchi, Jonathan Chichu, of getting Nabokov towards the end of his career. You know, they're probably one of my favorite what if teams game because their 08-09 team was one of the toughest teams I probably have seen play in quite a bit because that was a President's Trophy team that got knocked out by the 8 seed who happened to be the Ducks. But I saw them play in person in that playoff series. They were tough. They were physical. Todd McClellan had that team, on the same page. But again, the trophy curse obviously reared its ugly head, though. But they had some really good runs there, like in 08-09, 09 and 10, up 10-11. Like they had a 3 to 4 year window with that group of players that I thought should have gotten to the conference final, should have won a title. That obviously came though when that 17-18 team, I believe, or 16-17 team with, Carlson and some of those young kids like Barclay Goodrow, Kevin LeBanc, and then, that obviously had that miraculous, comeback, being down. I think they were 4-0 down, and they got the 5-minute power play against the Knights and knocked them out in overtime. They ran into that buzzsaw of the Penguins, though, that had just won the Cup the year prior. But Pavelski, but more importantly, I think, though, Jim, Pavelski being consistent post San Jose, that doubt, those Dallas teams, who again, we talked so much about, though, Jen, during the postseason, they have been fun to watch, but they just run out of gas at that time. But they've kind of, in a way, remind me a bit of that San Jose era, like in the 08-09 campaign. Veteran guys, good mixture of young kids, good goaltending, good coaching, but something seemed to go right. Now, whether that was, a team like, the Ducks who got in at the very end, figuring out how to beat them, or teams like Edmonton just being juggernauts, or other clubs like the Avalanche, for example, or Winnipeg, who have been like, a thorn in their side, though. But Pavelski was consistently always helping a team somewhere down the line. Against Scott Gomez, for example, again, multiple time Cup champion. I remember Scotty, that 03 Devils Ducks series again still remains up here because it was just so epic. Yeah, my team ended up losing it, though. But every home game or every game, the home team won. And mainly the games were going to overtime, 1-goal games. You had your blowouts here and there, but it was just so epic how it was a, young, energetic Anaheim club, veteran-led New Jersey club, the clashing of styles with those two teams. Zach Parise, again, Devils, Minnesota 2010 team. But also, I think, Jen, more importantly, you also have to look at people who contribute their time. Again, Bruce Bennett, again, covering over 5,300 games, 6 Olympic Games, 50 years. Then obviously, we love talking about the rise of women's hockey. And again, Tara being part of those first two early day Olympic teams when they really began to give women the platform to play ice hockey at the Olympic stage. So like we said, though, regardless of what Hall of Fame it is, massive honor. So congrats to all 5 of the inductees going into the USA Hockey Hall of Fame sometime soon.
Yeah, obviously, huge congrats to everybody. Obviously, we, Kellen and I do a topic every week called Growing the Game. Obviously, women's sports is a huge part of that because it's such a rapidly growing community and it's not done building. They're just getting started. So,
yeah, they're just
we'll talk
getting
more
started.
about that later, though.
Yeah, they're just getting started. Let's, Jen, move on to Pat Maroon having a brand new job as the alumni and brand ambassador for the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 3-time Cup champ. And the Big Rig, as he was affectionately known by, will be a representative for the Lightning in the community, working with youth hockey programs around the greater Tampa area and the team's broadcast as well via FanDuel Sports Sun and also local radio. Maroon also announced his retirement after playing over 848 games in the regular season. But, Jim, this continues, though, a trend, though. You have been very vocal about this, though, in a good way. This has become almost a new norm for players like a Joe Thornton, for example. But a lot of former players now are getting into roles with one of their clubs. Again, Jumbo Joe with the Sharks. Whether that's team management, broadcasting. Ryan Getzlaff for a long time was in player development with the Ducks. So, Jen, what does it mean, though, for a team to bring a player back in a role like this, for example, but also the kind of impact that you think he'll have on the community and the organization by, again, bringing the player experience, though, to into a brand new way here.
I mean, my God, he played for them and he did so much charity work. He did so many good things for the community. Every teammate loved him. There was never a negative thing said about him. Obviously bringing guys in, to a team they've already played for, a team they know, they know staff, they know trainers, they know, whatever. It makes a difference. It really does. Like, I know it sounds silly saying that out loud, he's a brand ambassador for the team, right? But you don't understand, every role has an important job, and especially when it comes to youth hockey, we're shaping the youth that is going to grow up to be the next leaders of this country. We're shaping these young minds to be who they are. I can almost compare this to being, myself being a staff member at a school. You sit there and you deal, to have these kids every day who are looking up to you, asking you questions, asking you all sorts of things, and they want to learn about the world. It's same with these young kids learning hockey. You're learning from one of the best in the business, in Patty Maroon, who, his own son is playing in the league now, I believe, or going to be in the league soon. Obviously, well done on him. Obviously, again, my Rangers just hired Blake Wheeler back into a front office role, which I didn't even get to write down. We'll do that later. But no, I love this for Patty Maroon. I think he's an excellent ambassador already. I just think, he loved this team and he loved, his staff and everyone that was there. He was always so grateful for everybody. So I think just putting him back in a role where he's comfortable, where he knows people, I think it's a no-brainer, obviously.
It is a no-brainer because, again, you bring the player into the organization and then they make an impact in some way. Again, like I said, Ryan Getzloff was a player development, assistant for the Ducks before he took the job at the NHL's player safety board, basically. And more importantly, though, I think of Pat Maroon, though, Jen, as a guy who seemed to play the game year-round. There were a lot of times after the Cup final victories, he would go and play summer roller hockey to stay in shape, in St. Louis at like the local rinks in St. Louis where, he played for the Blues at one point, won a championship there. Obviously, he won the two with Tampa Bay. But, this is like the new norm. It's one thing when like former NBA players, Jen, join the national broadcasts, like Vince Carter, for example, or whoever it is. But in the NHL, though, it seems like it's becoming a new norm nowadays where former players who make, some kind of impact get asked to come back to be like a special coach during rookie camp or during the preseason. There may be a coach, away from it. Or more importantly, like Neil said, though, about Scott Gomez still coaching junior level hockey to get these kids ready to play in the NHL or collegiately somewhere else. That goes a long way. And I think it goes a little bit further when we talk, Jen, about this happening in Tampa, Florida, not in New York, for example, or Boston, or Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, you name it, where that goes a long way. And as I've said, I've seen it firsthand, though, here in Southern California with either Anaheim or LA with what they do to grow the game in Southern California. And then you bring the players in, even to the broadcast, it adds a layer because you get the firsthand experience, firsthand analysis of, what could have been done differently on this power play or on this penalty kill or, something that they see that the average casual fan wouldn't quite understand. And then they, telestrate it, they break out, circling and drawing the arrows. And like it's it's like drawing up a play in a timeout to try to, get a game tying goal. So again, congrats to Pat Maroon in the brand new role he is in. Jen, going back to the fashion department, it finally came out over the past couple days with the Kraken finally unveiling its first ever third jersey. The quote-unquote stealth mode all-black design has a unique tunnel to it. Black on black chest with a glow-in-the-dark feature, much like the Vegas Golden Knights reverse retro a couple years ago. The design is inspired, I should say, by the eerie shadows of the deep Pacific Northwest waters, with sleeve stripes that resemble sonar pings, and will be worn for 12 games this season. There is, I believe that is Jordan Eberle wearing that brand new jersey with the glow-in-the-dark elements. There is a better shot of the front end of the photo or of the jersey again. I love the Kraken branding, Jen. I love what they've done with the color scheme, the logo, the whole release, the Kraken before the games at Climate Pledge Arena. and that they really have done just a great job with their branding across the board. And I actually kind of give us a clean bill of health, though. How is this going to really glow in the dark during the course of gameplay is my only question.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll work in game time, but I think it's just a really cool design. Obviously, taking a little bit of tribute from Vegas over there. I made fun of the Saints the other night, and I said they looked like the Vegas Golden Knights. I guess Seattle wanted to take a page out of that playbook there. So, but we are gonna stop here with this just for 1 second because our guest
Yes.
is here. So let me get myself situated because I was doing 5 things behind the scenes. So we have Jeff from Mind Your Puck and Business. If you're a Rangers fan, you know his podcast. Obviously, they're huge right now. They do live shows on Instagram. I believe it's Facebook and possibly Twitter. Am I correct on that?
Jeff, you're on mute, buddy. Okay, 1 second.
I think we're having.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
We got you, Jeff.
I can hear you.
Perfect. You are correct. We are on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. So I always like to say we're on too many platforms that you don't have an excuse to not find us. So yeah.
I love it.
And thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining. First off, thank you for taking the time to join us. I know you guys kind of do a lot behind the scenes. Obviously, you guys, do your live show. You guys are very active on social media, especially with the Ranger season upcoming. Obviously, I've seen you guys at games. I've seen you guys, doing events and different things, just, to start out. First off, thank you for being here. I know, obviously, it's a busy time getting ready for hockey season. We're all excited for that to happen. We're just kind of counting down the days at this point. But just your thoughts on everything that's happened with the Rangers. Obviously, this offseason was kind of crazy. It was busy, a lot of front office changes, the booth changing, a lot of players getting traded. But just your thoughts on the whole offseason, what you think the outcome of this season is going to look like, with the new talent.
Yeah, I mean, the New York Rangers kind of are known in the offseason to be the team that gets the highest, free agent on the market and all that stuff. And it wasn't the case this year. They didn't have the cap room, and there also really wasn't the greatest UFA class to begin with. I like what Chris Drury did. I don't think, he did anything massively major. Trading Keandre Miller would probably be the only thing he's done. And, a lot of people are passionate, whether you like him or hate him, and more people don't like him. But trading him doesn't alleviate the problems this team had last year. It's not like, okay, well, hey, now you got rid of Keandre Miller and we expect to be the President's Trophy winning team 2 years ago. I don't think it works like that. But, I would expect this year to be better. I do think last year was a Murphy's Law kind of thing. Like, what else could go wrong? And it just spiraled all year. Do I think they'll be back to where they were 2 years ago, like I just mentioned when they won the President's Trophy? Absolutely not. I don't think they're the same team. But I think that they're aided in the fact that the Metropolitan Division, I don't think is that good. I mean, there's maybe 2 teams that are above them easily, and there are some bottom feeder teams in there. So I think if I had my prediction, I would say they make the playoffs, and they might do so via the road of the wild card. But as you guys know, as hockey fans, you can get in as the wild card, ride a hot goalie like Igor Shesterkin and make a run. You just got to get in. So I would think I mean, look, if they don't have a better year, there's going to be massive problems because how could it be worse, right? I mean, I'm just being honest. It really can't be worse.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think lost in translation a little bit as well is the other move, though, made of Chris Kreider coming to Anaheim in exchange for Kerry Terrance, who was a Anaheim draft pick. They also got a 3rd-round pick from Anaheim in this year's draft, which freed up some salary relief for them. And obviously, Jeff, this was a major shakeup. Kreider had been there, I think Jen told me about 10, 15 years or pretty close to it. So maybe away from the fan reaction, Jeff, do you think that the Rangers made the right move in prioritizing cap relief over a veteran presence like Kreider being there, who I think was a staple of their power play unit for such a long time?
100%. We actually had a show. We're not on every week in the summer, but we happened to be on the week before he was traded. And I went on a whole spiel, and it's actually clipped on Instagram, that they need to move on from Kreider because you can't be paying a guy who had his point production last year the amount of money he's getting per year in a team that's already cap strapped. Like, you just can't. Chris Kreider, he had to be moved. And that move was solely for cap relief. You kind of said it yourself, and I think you're spot on it. But you can't be paying a guy, I mean, what is it, $6.5 million a year to give you 30 points? It just doesn't make sense. He's also been injured. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a good year in Anaheim. He's got an offensive minded coach in Joel Quenneville, and that team is going to benefit from a new coach. They have really good young talent there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has a better year, but I think they made the right move in kind of closing the Kreider chapter on Broadway.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Obviously, people know anything about me. I'm the biggest Kreider fighter. I will fight for that man. I have no problem telling you off. But no, as much as it sucked and it hurt to watch him go after being, the face of the franchise, everybody is Kreider this, Kreider that. Every year you heard, oh, is Kreider going to have a good year? Is he going to have a bad year? Is he going to show up and be the player everyone thought he was going to be coming out of, Boston College all those years ago when he played with, Rick Nash very briefly and Marty St. Louis and all the major guys we had on that team. And he just was never the same player. Obviously, every year the team was a little different. I know the Rangers kind of are guilty of the carousel, not only coaching standpoint, but from a player productive, if they're not a good, you're gone. See ya, bye. And for me, it was, watching Carter go was hard, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to this new team. Obviously, Will Cooley getting a nice contract. The young kids, Rempe and Adam Edstrom are back. They were both injured at the end of the season there. You got Gabe Persaud coming up. You have all these young kids. So just, Jeff, your thoughts on just the Rangers, kind of the youth of the Rangers kind of coming up and finally getting their opportunity to kind of show what they can do.
Well, we've been hearing, Jen, about Gabe Perreault for years. So, I mean, you would like to see something. It doesn't mean that a guy is going to come in his rookie year and dominate and be a massive force. I think I'd be surprised if that happened. I'd be pleasantly surprised, but I don't think that's a realistic expectation. I mean, I'd like to see, that he can play the game and adapt at the NHL speed. Um, I was an Adam Enstrom fan. I mean, I think he's good. I mean, again, is he going to be the difference maker? Probably not, but I think he can fulfill that bottom six role. And this is probably a hot take, and I'm in the minority on this. I cannot stand Matt Rempe. I just cannot stand the guy. I don't understand the hype that he gets. He takes stupid penalties. He does nothing. He cannot skate. I just do not understand the love that Matt Rempe was given the keys to New York City by Ranger fans 2 years ago. And I have no idea why. Like, I did we like the 5-minute major in New Jersey? That was totally unnecessary. Did we like the 5-minute major in the playoffs against the Caps? That was unnecessary. Like, I don't get it. I honestly do not understand why people like Matt Rempe. It is bizarre to me. He is nothing but a fourth liner who puts up maybe 7 points a year. So that's my thought on Matt Rempe. Sorry to go off on I get a little emotional with Matt Rempe because I don't understand why people feel the way they do. But yeah, you're right. I mean, look, some of these young kids, Othman's another one you'd like to think is going to get more ice time this year. Brett Berard as well. The Rangers, and I said this on NYPB last week, I think one of the issues that they're going to have is if you look at their team, there is a drop-off between the top six and the bottom six. The bottom six is not very good. And the top six can be good. They're getting older, so we don't know. But because that bottom six is not that good, you're going to get, Jen, these opportunities like you just mentioned for the youth to fill in and see what we got. And that will be something where if they're not good, and let's hope that's not the case, at least it will be interesting to see, hey, this is your future pipeline. Let's take a look and see what these players can do.
Jeff, I think the other interesting tangent about the Rangers is the future maybe of some core pieces like a Mika Zibanejad, maybe a Panarin. I think of Adam Fox, who I know, is always in the running for the Norris Trophy. But Jen and I agreed that kind of in a way, Cale Makar's got that award on lockdown right now. So with the transition right now, where the team's going, what is your thoughts on the future maybe of a player like Zibanejad or even like a Panarin or an Adam Fox? Are any of these guys untouchable, or do you perhaps see the Rangers and Drury trying to maybe sell off more of these veteran pieces to probably, in a way, tear the house down and improve the team with the youth movement maybe and free up more salary?
They would trade Mika Zibanejad in a heartbeat, but no one will take him, and he won't waive his no move clause. I mean, why would you want to be paying a guy if you had the choice $8.5 million to the year 2030, where he played last year? It's ludicrous. Now maybe he bounces back. He was better when he moved to the wing when JT Miller came to town. Hopefully that will still be the case here this year. Panarin's an interesting one. You know, he's in a contract year. He's going to get paid somewhere. Does Chris Drury say, hey, this is not the year, we're going to trade him and get something for him while we can and not re-sign him? The only reason I think that they won't do that is you just signed the franchise goalie to the highest goalie contract ever. How do you then sell to your fan base, we're in a rebuild, right? We just gave you Igor Shesterkin at the amount of money we're paying him in the prime of his career in his late 20s. Now we're going to do a rebuild. I don't think they'll do that. Adam Fox is not going to go anywhere. He's a cornerstone for years. He grew up in Long Island. He grew up a Ranger fan. And again, they would move on from Mika if they could, and they'd probably move on tonight if they could. But they're not going to be able to. There are two massive roadblocks they can't get around. He's not going to waive it. And what team is going to turn around and pick up that contract with the year he had?
Yeah, no, I agree. I will be the first to admit this, and I'll put this out on camera because I do not care. Come fight me for it. Panarin sucks. Sorry, I don't like the man. Never have. Didn't like him when he was with Kane. Yeah, they were good together. Did I like him? No, I didn't really care for him. Neither one were really my cup of tea. But I don't think Panarin's done anything to make this team better. Yeah, he's a machine during the regular season, but where is he in playoffs when it counts the most? I haven't seen him do crap yet when it comes to playoffs. He gets scared. Like, he's not built for the pressure that is the New York fan base. Do I think he could be good with the team if he finds his strategy? Absolutely. I have no doubt in that. But with this Rangers team, with the money he's making, with the ridiculous contract he has, I don't think he works for this team. But Jeff, just your thoughts on Panarin as his contract. You know, just the ridiculous overpay, I believe, at least in my opinion.
So I understand. So all right, I understand what you're saying, Jen, and you're right. His playoff numbers are not what they are in the regular season. But I'm going to tell you this: if he doesn't have the 120-point season he had 2 years ago, if he didn't have the 90-point season he had last year, you need to replace those points somehow to get to the postseason. And I don't know how they do that. If you want to say, I'm going to get rid of Panarin because he doesn't produce in the playoffs, which I don't necessarily agree with, because he scored the Game 7 overtime winning goal versus Pittsburgh. He scored the Game 3 overtime winning goal in Carolina 2 years ago. I mean, the man has produced in the playoffs, just not at the level that he does in the regular season. But if you're going to get rid of that, you need to have some plan in place that you're replacing the points he was responsible for. So I don't want them to overpay for him. I don't want them to ever overpay for anyone. But if you're going to tell me they're going to move on from Panarin, you need to have a plan as to how you're replacing that amount of points, because it's a significant amount of points in the regular season you need to replace.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm glad, though, you brought up the whole ordeal about Igor Shesterkin getting that contract. And it's kind of like not really like a false flag operation. My Padres were in this predicament, though, come the trade deadline about Dylan Cease. Are you going to keep him, or what are you going to sell to the fan base? We're going to buy, but also sell and create more holes on the roster. Right? I think your point is, so spot on. Why give Shesterkin that big contract and all of a sudden start trading away more pieces off the roster to add more potholes on the freeway, basically, that you need to go patch up? More importantly, though, Jeff, as well, Mike Sullivan, obviously longtime adversary, in Pittsburgh, longtime rival. Now he joins the franchise as the new head coach. Thoughts about Sullivan coming in for year number one?
I like it. Look, they had to move on from Laviolette. That's not to say that the blame for last year is squarely on Peter Laviolette. That would be completely unfair to do, but it's always easier to fire a coach than it is players. And something had to change, because I don't know how you could sell to me as someone who has season tickets, hey, we're going to come back with the same coach that gave you the sort of year we did last year, now pay us our season ticket money. I like Mike Sullivan. Look, I think he was the best coach out there. The Rangers, this group, if you look at the last two coaching changes they've been through in the last 4 years, Gerard Gallant and Laviolette, the first year they've had the change and a new voice in the room, they've done very well. I mean, they've really had their two best years in their coach's first year. Mike Sullivan is a very good coach, right? I could talk to you about the two Stanley Cups, but I actually think almost maybe even more impressive, or equally as impressive, is the fact that he's coaching Team USA. I mean, that says a lot, right? If you're the Olympic coach, You're beating out any hockey coach that's out there that's from this country. So you've got to be kind of top of your craft. So I like it. I think Mike Sullivan doesn't have the similar group here that he had in Pittsburgh when he won the cup to work with. But it's not to say that he can't be creative enough to say, okay, here are my strengths with this group here in New York. How do I, master that? How do I play to those strengths? And here are the weaknesses. So I like it. I mean, I think he was the best coach that was available out of the coaching free agent crop that was there this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a great pickup. Obviously, I will go at Kellen a little bit for this, and he knows how I feel about this. The coach they have over there, not my favorite person. Don't like what he stands for. Don't like the mess he was in. I don't like that the NHL brought him back. I wish there would have been a firmer.
Yeah, so one thing on Quenneville with the Rangers, because it was rumored to happen. I think that all right. So I think if you take out what happened, and what happened is hard. I'm not even going to go down that road. But if I stick to him as a hockey coach, he would probably be up there at the level that Sullivan was, and maybe even above it, right? I mean, he really was. My concern, and the reason I didn't want them to hire him, was because he would have been a PR nightmare in New York and a distraction, whether it was deserved, undeserved. I'm not going down that road. But the fact is that this team had enough issues last year in the locker room to bring in that sort of issues to then be the voice of the team would never have worked here, whether he was a good coach or not. So I'm happy they stayed away from him. But I do think if you take the off the ice stuff aside, I actually think Anaheim's going to have a very good year. I think they got rid of Zegras, but you got Mason McTavish. You've got a group of guys there, young talent, a coach who's gonna go be trying harder than ever to prove himself because of what he's been through. I really, and they've got leadership. Vetrano, we know in New York. Trouba's a veteran. Kreider knows what he's doing. Ryan Strome can be okay. I mean, I'm telling you, like Anaheim would be a team that I would not sleep on in the West at all.
And that's kind of been a point I've said is, 21-point increase from the year prior. We're knocking on the door before the very end of the season to probably get in. The West is obviously the West. That's it's the way it is, the wild, wild West. Again, folks, Jeff from Mind Your Pucking Business Rangers podcast joining us here on Puck Talk, episode 15. Jeff, you also kind of in a way brought up about Chris Drury. In a way, where things kind of are with the franchise. You've got your segment of fans who love what he's doing. You got the pockets of individuals who don't like what he's doing. Jeff, where do you stand, though, about Chris Drury and the Rangers front office right now as we enter the new season here very soon?
Well, I think any general manager in any sport within their fan base are going to have some people that don't like them. I mean, I don't think there's a perfect general manager out there. Myself, I like it. I mean, I think he's knowledgeable. Were the people that said in the beginning of this offseason, before he got the extension, well, they should fire Chris Drury. Well, who's the better answer? I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that I know the general manager market like I do the coaching market.
Right.
I like him. I think Chris Drury has shown you, and maybe some of the moves haven't been right. He's not afraid to do what he thinks is best for the team. Even if it's a tough thing for him to do, he'll do it. And that's what I want. If you were, I want someone that's going to do whatever it takes to do what he thinks or he or she thinks is the best thing for the club that I root for. I don't want a coach who's afraid to make a tough move. I like what Chris Drury's done. Has he been a perfect general manager? No, but I can't find you a perfect general manager anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Just Jeff, one more question. Obviously, let's move away from the ice here a little bit. I want to talk to you about the obviously the retirement of Sam and Joe. Obviously, longtime faces of the New York Rangers. Even if you didn't see them on TV, you heard their voices on the radio occasionally. National broadcasts. You know their voices just by hearing them. Just your thoughts on them retiring, and obviously the not so much replacement, but fill-in of Kenny and Dave Maloney moving from the radio to the TV to fill that spot.
So first off, on Sam, on a personal note, I have a business that I run. I got to spend the day at his house 2 weeks ago with Sam Rosen. It was one of the coolest days of my life. And I have to say that, he is known, if you talk to people, and they'll tell you he's the nicest guy ever. I spent about 45 minutes with him on his deck a week ago Friday, and that could not be more true. Like it's like he is the guy you want to be related to. He's the guy, just the nicest guy. Sam Rosen is the only voice I've ever known. I'm 45 years old of being the play-by-play by the Rangers, and he will be missed 100%. But Kenny Albert is no slouch. He has national TV games, and if people think for a minute that this is a massive regression, and I mean this in all due respect to Sam Rosen, Kenny Albert is not necessarily going backwards. Sam has been getting older. He's made some mistakes here and there. Everyone does. Kenny Albert, I think if people are willing to give him a chance, and it might take some time, I think what they're going to find is the linguist ability of him with words is he's not at the level of Doc Emmerich, but he's pretty darn good. He's a passionate guy. He lives about 10 minutes from me in northern New Jersey. He's been around the Garden all his life. I think he's good. I think Dave Maloney as well can be good. I think he can be somewhat he has more of a personality than Joe Micheletti had, which is also not saying much. Joe was not going to sit there and crack jokes and show you passion, if you will, and that was Joe's style. I'm looking forward to it. I think in the long term, it's going to work. I think the short term, there's an adjustment because it's all we've ever known is Sam and Joe or Sam and JD before. But I think it can work. I really do.
Jeff, we'll get you out of here. I'll get you out of here on this one before we let you plug the show and we move on. But more importantly, though, again, the Rangers, again, it's their 100th year anniversary this season. Again, so many names, memories come to mind, I'm sure, of watching the Rangers at one point, throughout your life. Obviously, I'm sure game 6, Mateau comes to mind. And then obviously Mark Messier saying, we'll win game 7. And then they go up there and beat Vancouver to break, I think that 54-year curse of not winning the cup. Jeff, what's probably the one memory being a Rangers fan that will stay with you for the rest of your life? Is it game 6 in 94? Is it obviously winning game 7 to break, the curse of 45 or 48, or maybe something else along the lines of a Ranger fandom that stands out for you?
The team for winning one cup in my lifetime has given me a lot of really good memories of certain moments. I mean, yeah, I think I'd have to answer that with winning the cup in '94, right? It's the pinnacle of the sport. That has to be the thing. The game 7 Mateau game, the game 6 Messier guarantee. That game 6 game, I was in 8th grade. I was on a field trip. We were in DC. We go away for 2 days, and
yeah,
I remember we were on a boat on the Potomac, and this is going to be very weird for you to imagine, but we didn't have iPhones at the time. We had Walkmans, right?
Yeah.
And so myself and 2 of the teachers, we went downstairs away from the group, and we put our Walkman on to listen to the game and get the score, because that's how you had to get the score back then.
Love it.
So that's a good memory. I mean, look, I could go to the Panarin Game 7 winner versus Pittsburgh. I could go to 2014 when they won the Eastern Conference 1-0 in Game 6. There's a lot of really good games in there. Carl Hagelin winning Game 5 in overtime against the Penguins and winning the series. They have had a lot of overtime playoff winners. Mika up in Montreal, I think it was 2017. There's been a lot, but how could I sit here and say that the pinnacle was not winning the cup in '94? I do wish that I was older than 14 at the time. I do remember it well. I remember what I ate on that Tuesday night. I then failed my English final the next morning because I didn't study. But winning the cup, I would say for sure has to be number one.
Oh, without a doubt, 1,000%. I mean, I think that ESPN did either a 30 for 30 or a film about that club winning it again. With Mateau's goal, Messier's guarantee. Then obviously they beat the Canucks the following game to win the Stanley Cup and break that long curse. Jeff, again, thanks for the time. Where can people find the Mind Your Pucking Business pod for all things Rangers hockey?
Sure. So we are back now with the season coming back. We're back on our weekly schedule, back to work every Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can watch it live if you want to watch it live on YouTube and Instagram. We're also on Spotify and iTunes and Facebook. We're all over the place. We're very active on Instagram, as Jen said before. We have a cardinal rule around here that I do regret, but it is we answer every DM. So every DM that comes in, some days it can be 50, some days it can be 200. We do answer them all. Might be late at night when I get the kids to bed. Oh, we answer them all. So yeah, check it out if you're a Ranger fan, and I know Jen is a Ranger fan. I love her stuff. I love watching her stuff, and thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Maybe we'll have you back on as the season gets down the line a little closer to actual hockey and not just preseason hockey. But
Anytime, I'm happy to be here. And you know what? I'd love to come back and we could track and the Ducks and see if my prediction is right. Obviously, you're out there, so you know it better than me. But they are a team that I really think is going to be fun, fast style of hockey and fun to watch. So yeah, whenever you guys want me back, I'd love to come on. And you guys have a good night.
Jeff,
Yeah, you too.
thank
Thanks
you
again, Jeff, for
I
the time.
appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Anytime. Be well, guys. Thank you.
All right. Jeff from the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast. I think Jen kind of said everything that we've been saying about the Rangers is that which way are they going to go? Is it going to be this way, that way? But I think Jeff, though, was so right, though. You don't want to give fans like false hopes or a false flag operation of, hey, we just gave Igor a boatload of money, but we're going to trade away Panarin and trade away Adam Fox.
Yeah, no. Obviously, Fox is not going anywhere. He's going to be the cornerstone of this team for a very long time. He's only in his I think he's just around my age, a little younger than me. So he's definitely one of the big cornerstones. Obviously, as I mentioned, Will Cooley, another young kid, gets a nice 2 to 3 year contract. He's been an absolute unit. He came in and had a solid season. Got the money he deserved. So this Rangers team is a very interesting one. Again, we'll keep Jeff in mind as we go down the line, as we get closer to regular season hockey. But Kellen, there is one thing I do want to bring up with you because it's been bothering me and I want to talk about it on the show. Obviously, you and I have done so much chatting about, which way, for a lot of teams, are they going to go this way, that way? But let's talk about the teams who aren't, the teams we constantly talk about, and that's the Islanders. For me, I have an Islanders friend who's going to be joining us very soon, who I'm going to try to bring on the show very soon. That's the plan, but again, that'll be worked out later in time. They got rid of Lou Lamoriello. We talked about that being the biggest objective thing that they did all season, but they got a new coach. That's huge. They've been playing well. They got the young talent now coming up. They did really well in the draft. Obviously our argument's been Matthew Schaefer this, Matthew Schaefer that. Will he get to play? Is he going to go somewhere else? Are they going to, put him down in the AHL if he's allowed? What are they going to do with Matthew Schaefer? Where is he going to go? But for me, it's, look at all the other talent they have. I really think, Jeff kind of said it right, though. Maybe some teams are bottom feeders, but are the Islanders going to be the bottom team? No, I don't believe so. I think the Islanders are going to be a real threat this year. I don't think they win it all yet. I think give it 2 to 3 years, and they're definitely a contender. But don't sleep on the Islanders this season. I have to say it. Ranger fans, don't kill me. It's just my thought. I'm not saying anything. I love my fan base. I do. I promise I love you. But, Kellen, just your thoughts on what I just said.
There's a lot of teams who kind of feel like, I would call it, they're kind of stuck in neutral, if that makes sense. They're kind of stuck in neutral about what are we going to do. Let's look at let's just go division by division real quick. So Atlantic, we had Toronto, Tampa Bay, Florida, Ottawa make it out of there. We had Montreal also make it. So Red Wings, Sabres, Bruins. Bruins, obviously, they sold. That was a fire sale, unbeknownst to mankind, when they trade away Marchand and Brandon Carlo and McAvoy get traded. Buffalo, they've been in neutral, it feels like, since 99. They've been this way since losing to Dallas in the Cup final. Red Wings are still, I think they're close. I don't know how close. They finished still with 86 points, and they were, quick math, they're 91 minus 86 is what, 7 points back of Montreal. So Red Wings probably take a lead in that division, hopefully. The Metro, Columbus missed out by 2 points. Rangers missed out. Islanders missed out. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. I think the Rangers are better than what their record showed last season. I think that we both, Jen, agree, though, that, I don't think that there was friction, but just that guys weren't on the same page. Injuries were also a part of it. Blue Jackets, everyone wanted them to make the postseason for Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. They were so damn close last season. Islanders, 500 team last year. They're going to probably take a leap forward. Pittsburgh, this is like a brand new chapter. Mike Sullivan's now the head coach of the Rangers. Letang, Crosby, Malkin are all getting older. Philadelphia, they're starting, I think, to get there now that Rick Tocchet can now put his system in place for a full year. not having the drama with John Tortorella now, behind the bench.
Zegras as well, let's not forget that. Zegras is not to be slept on.
Yes. And then, him going there. I think that all those teams can make some kind of improvements. A matter of what will the other three teams do, ahead of them. Out west, we know that the West is really a wagon, to use your terminology. So Utah, Nashville, Chicago in the Central. Utah, I thought was close last year. They're still though showing age. Nashville, I think, Jen, was the big. And we said this, Jen. They were easily the biggest disappointment in the West last year because they spent all that moolah, all that money on Stamkos and Marchessault. As I have long believed, Jen, I will take this to my grave. You can spend all the money you want in free agency. It won't work usually in year one. I don't want to hear about Tom Brady in Tampa Bay in the NFL in 2020. That was a one-off year for it actually happening. Chicago, I think they probably now become, I think them and San Jose, Jen, are both they're not under scrutiny, but they're going to be watched a lot closer again next season. I think San Jose is here right now when it comes to what they have. Chicago's here because Bedard's one thing, but you don't have a lot of pieces around him. Ryan Donato's a good ad, but at least the Sharks have Celebrini with Smith, with Tyler Toffoli, for example. They have players around him in San Jose. It's Bedard versus the world right now in Chicago. And then in the Pacific Division, Calgary stumbled so badly last year. They were right there, and then they got leapfrogged at the very end. Vancouver, they were a soap opera last year on CBS. They were beyond out of control, Jim, with what we heard, though, from the news outlets about about all of the infighting. JT Miller and Elias Pettersson having their problems. I think a lot of people do think Anaheim takes a leap, but again, 21-point increase, 80-point finish of the season, just happened to run out of gas at the very end, though. Seattle is still, they're puzzling, Jen. I don't like, though, that team blew out Dan Bleisman after 1 year. I was very shocked about that because he had so much success. Again, you can't compare minor league success to the pros, I get that, but that is just so, I think, wrong to blow out a coach, giving him the keys for year one, and then he's, they finished 7 games under 500, and then he's out of there. No. I don't like that. And then obviously the Sharks, 20 wins again, 50 losses in regulation time. But at least they have pieces around their kids, much like Anaheim does, not like what Chicago's doing. So I think a lot of these teams in that Jen that did miss out, they will take steps forward, though. But it's a matter of what will the top half of the division actually do in front of them before they actually can really make a dent in their respective division or the conference.
Absolutely, yeah. But speaking of the Rangers, let's look at the center ice logo because, again, they have a new logo for the 100th anniversary. I'm going to get that set up, so give me one.
Matter of fact, actually, Gen 2 teams actually have new logos for their 100th season. That includes the Rangers.
Montreal as well. I do have that one as well.
And the Montreal Canadiens both have new logos. Again, this is customary, though, with any anniversary season. As will be the case, I believe, next year for LA, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh when they turn 60, I believe, in 26, 27. The Rangers' new look, again, they've got they've long had that other circle with the Madison Square Garden word mark and the Ranger word mark. Of course, it's the shield with the 100 years on it. And, of course, the navy blue almost looks like it's a bit of a darker blue than what it usually is, what they wear. So that will be at MSG for the full season.
Well, that was probably right after they just put the ice down, so it probably just needs to set for a bit, and it'll probably change color a little bit, be a little lighter. So I'm sure that was just because they probably took the photo as soon as it got done sitting. So
yeah, it looks like the Zamboni had just gone over it, and of course the trademark numbers of the red number with the white shadow behind it at MSG. And then, Jen, then came Montreal. This was very, I think, well done. Though it's been a very much copycat thing post teams winning the Stanley Cup. But, of course, the Canadiens who've won 24 Cups, they've got 24 grooves that are inspired by the Cups Bowl to their 24 championships won. And, of course, Canadiens, they Montreal for them being, for the French market and the French fan base. They're one of, I believe that the Canadiens are one of, I think, 2 teams that have a bilingual English and French PA announcer in the building, including the Ottawa Senators. Of course, Jen, 100 years, though, for any franchise, anniversary years, Jen, are one thing, but 100 years, though, history, championships, legendary names, you name it. Jen, obviously, Rangers and the Canadians put out their new logos. The 3D look for the Habs is one thing, but I don't think nothing beats like a slice of American hockey history like the Rangers.
I love that they brought back the shield. Honestly, I always love the older logos, especially. Again,
And
you
I
and I
believe
have
they
said
wore
it a
that,
hundred
and I think they
times.
wore that a couple times for the Winter Classic a couple times.
Yes, they did a couple times. I believe. Did they do it in 20? They might have done it in 2018 when they did it at City Field over here in Queens by me. Uh, but no, the logo is sick. Obviously, they brought back the old school shield, which I adore. Again, I think every Rangers fan were a little nostalgic because again, we have only a few logos that aren't not like repeat logos, so we
If
have
it's
very
not the
limited
Shield, it
to look
has to be
at.
Lady Liberty.
I was just about to say, I think you and I have talked about this till we're blue in the face. You and I have said the Lady Liberty ad is the one you need to bring back. So I would like to see the Rangers, maybe with a reverse retro, do something with the Liberty head.
Yeah,
Maybe
do it again.
remodel it a little bit, maybe make it a little more updated. But I think the Lady Liberty one is still always the most iconic Rangers logo out there. I don't know if you agree with me, but
1,000%. I mean, nothing beats tradition, And again, when you're an original six club, tradition matters to a fan base like Montreal, Toronto, Detroit, who finally brought the Hockey Town wordmark back finally at Little Caesars Arena after it being gone. Like I recalled like the days at Joe Louis Arena when Anaheim had to play them for all those years in the postseason, seeing Hockey Town across the winged wheel and logo. Or the wing wheel logo at center ice at the Joe, or even at Little Caesars. But again, tradition though for a franchise like the Rangers, the Leafs, Montreal, Detroit, that all matters. And I would even say, Jen, it even matters to a franchise like the new six that came almost 60 years ago, like LA and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And then, I would even say in some way, like the Ducks going back to the old original logo, but in a new way with the orange and all that sort of stuff. Though again, Anaheim had their 30th anniversary logo where it was literally the original logo with a giant 30 in the middle of it. They even took the Rangers inspired look of the other circle within the circle, but it had, the Ducks name and then the Mighty Ducks name that had the slogan of fly together. That's the team hashtag every season. But, tradition matters. And I think, Jen, it feels like it matters a bit more in a sport like hockey in some way than maybe some other sports, unless you're like the Lakers, the Celtics, the Dodgers, the Yankees, maybe the Chiefs or the Steelers in the NFL or the 49ers. But hockey tradition, I think, though, is what is probably one that you can't mess with like you can in other sports, if you ask me.
absolutely. Again, we can transition this. I'm gonna actually say this, and then I'm gonna bring it up. Carolina. Can we?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say one thing, please? Because it's gonna. I know fans are gonna come for me, and I don't care. Fight me, please. I dare you. Stop changing your logo every season. You don't need it. It's unnecessary. Why do you want to have a natural disaster as your logo? It makes no sense. Your logo is the hurricane warning flag, which ruins cities as a whole. Why would you want that? Stop with the. Even I can go after the Avalanche for that. Why do you want that as your logo? What
Yeah,
makes
I
you think
mean,
of that? Like, stop with the natural disasters. It's weird. It's creepy. I don't like it. And let me get set up here with this because
yeah.
I
So for those who don't know, the Hurricanes did unveil their new road whites, which moves away from the Rangers-inspired Canes diagonal wordmark across the front, and has been replaced by their 2023 Stadium Series jersey, which features a two-tone red and black Hurricane logo on the front, but also though features a very interesting shoulder patch, which also I believe includes the recoloring of the state flag of North Carolina on one shoulder. But also, Jen, more importantly, I don't know if you have the other one, but it also features a strutting Stormy the Pig mascot logo on the opposite shoulder, a beloved fan favorite mascot mark that is now a part of the official jersey. I don't actually mind the look, though. I just don't like, Jen, how they've been so inconsistent with their branding on the road over the last several years.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually gonna send that photo to myself. I actually do have it here. Because
Of the mascot patch on the shoulder.
yes, I'm doing that right now because I totally forgot to do that. Actually, thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't like this jersey. As you can see, I have it pulled up on screen here. I hate this. What is this? Trash, L. I don't like it. Get rid of it. Throw it away. Burn it with fire. Carolina, go back to your original jerseys. They were much nicer, much cleaner. Don't stop trying to outdo yourselves every year. This is almost as bad as the Devil's candy cane logo, with the red and green.
Oh, as Neil was saying about the St. Patty's Day look that they usually wear for Christmas and for St. Patrick's Day, I believe, too.
Yeah, they have the, I call it the ugly Christmas sweater jersey. Here is the patch we were talking about. I don't know why it's so
it's
but there it is.
That is, though, it's something different where you don't really see teams, Jen, use the mascot in some way like this. It reminds me, you know what it is? It's a good callback to like college athletics in a way, if you ask me. That's what it feels like in a way.
It's stupid. I like Stormy, their actual mascot, not whatever this live pig thing is now that they're gonna have. Stop! It's not Al the Octopus. You can't have the Detroit thing. That's like the classic one that I think of that when it comes to that in the NHL. Obviously, you can go with the fisherman for the Islanders, but
Yes.
actual person that was actually based on a real person. So, but what is this thing? It's ugly. It's scary. It's terrifying. I didn't know it was Halloween, so none of this. I hate this jersey. I know people said it's nice. I hate it. I think it's stupid in every way, shape, and form.
You know what? It also reminds me of like your high school Letterman's jacket if you're an athlete.
Yes.
Where you get the mascot patch for the Letterman's jacket. That's what it kind of reminds me of. Now, it might be this might be very weird as a crossover. The Hurricanes the Hurricanes do share their arena with the North Carolina State University Wolfpack basketball teams, where again it has that college feel to it with this. If you can go back into the actual jersey for just a moment, the one detail I don't like about it is I'm not really sold on the red, black, and then the white sleeves. And I also, as an announcer, I hate when jersey numbers don't have an outline on the on the back or on the shoulder. I would like if there was like a shadow put where you can make it stand out for what the number is. I mean, I don't really mind it too much. There's just some small, minute details that they could have gotten right this time around, but also the Canes have to just pick something and stay with it and not change it again like next season.
They're going to change it again next season. They think they're the new 100th anniversary team, and they're not even close to that.
They kind of in a way operate like the Oregon football program, and they get like a new jersey every year or every game.
Callan, did you see Nick's comment, by the way?
I did not.
Oh my god, he said it looks like the laughing cow from the cheese commercial. I think he means the Baby Bell cheese.
Yes. I didn't even think about that. I would not have even thought about that, Nick. That's a very good thing. I mean, okay, we could say it looks like that, but it also in a way had it felt like it had like that college feel, like the high school Letterman jacket patch on the very front of the uniform. Jen, do we want to go back and talk a bit more about the Seattle jersey because we did not get a chance to really fulfill the quota there because Jeff came on to the show and joined us. Again,
I have it here if you want to look at it. I can bring it up again.
So
button this time.
Yeah, so I mean again, folks, the Kraken did unveil their new their first official third jersey. They had the very weird one-off of the reverse retro a couple years ago with the half navy blue, half light blue jersey, and then they had the Winter Classic jersey that looked like the Seattle Metropolitans won the Stanley Cup in 1917. Again, they took elements of the Vegas Golden Knights' reverse retro from a couple of years ago with the glow-in-the-dark features, designed to evoke the eerie shadows of the deep Pac Northwest waters, where, of course, they are headquartered and they play their home games with the stripes on the sleeve representing sonar pings that are used to track, stuff in the ocean. And the club will wear for 12 games coming up this season. Jen, I don't know how you feel about this. I think it's just
a good look at the front crest.
Yeah, so there's the front crest of it, again, it glows in the dark. But I think, though, Jen, it's very tough, I'd say, when you start a brand new franchise to try to begin looking at alternate jerseys. Like it was so weird, like when the Knights came in and they had that reverse retro with, the red with the alternate logo on the front, and they had the main logo on the sleeve, the shoulder patches. Again, the Kraken came and they had like, the half navy blue, half light blue. I really thought though that Seattle hit a home run though, Jen, with their Winter Classic jerseys at T-Mobile Park. Again, it was a tribute to the 1917 Seattle Metros who won the Cup in 1917, and it had, the red, S. It had the Kraken word mark, like how it spelled Seattle on the front. I loved how it was like, blue. It had the bar across the front, and then it was, it still was navy blue. But I think, though, Jen, it's difficult, though, when you're a first-year franchise or a brand new franchise to begin to think so far outside the box for this sort of stuff, though. Where again, I think the Knights got it right when they got to do the gold jersey finally at home. The steel gray became their alternate. Yeah, they had the very, I actually have a shirt, Jen, that has the Vegas word mark from that glow in the dark Excalibur expired jersey on the front of it. And then what Seattle tried to do. I know that when the Ducks tried to do a third jersey the first time, it was not that great. I have it in my closet. The Kings tried with the Kings tried for, the what they called the Burger King look in '95, which was despised by the franchise. But Jen, do you think it's a struggle? But do you think though, Jen, it's tough for a first year or a brand new organization? Example again, Seattle, Vegas, even now Utah, Jen, to try to get that third jersey right the first time around and not have to change it every other year or so often?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this one not. I mean, I was actually going to originally put this in our sin bin segment, which we didn't even get to have time for today. But I actually love this jersey. I think this jersey is a huge W. I think it's great. I think it's fun that it glows in the dark. I think it brings a little bit of a different aspects to the jersey, which is really cool to look at. I know Nick said it looks like a witch's brew is being made. Yes, Nick, I get it. I know with the smoke on the other one, I get it. That's very funny, actually. But I love this jersey. I love their OG jersey, the original one with like the blue and the white and like the Seattle with the big S, and it was like
Yes.
really popped, and it was like I was like, dude, I actually have a Seattle Kraken T-shirt somewhere with their original OG logo because I'm like, that thing A is so original, and B it's sick looking because no one's done something like this. No one's bothered to branch out. I mean, God's sakes, look at their goddamn mascot Bowie, who got almost eaten by a bear.
I would though, Jen, like to see. I would have liked this more if it wasn't black, because black is such a common theme jersey in the NHL. I think I saw a bar down share that I think over half the teams currently have a black jersey in some way, shape, form, or size. Where this could have been, done a bit different. I would like though eventually, Jen, to see them do one with the shoulder patch on the front, where it's. And I love the shoulder patch. It's an anchor, but it looks like the Seattle Space Needle on top of it being a ship anchor. I like this, so it could have been different. By the way, speaking of that first ever Ducks alternate jersey, this was the reverse retro in 2021.
Wild Wing.
The breaking through the ice one, though back in the day it was green, but this is the white one that they did. It's got my name on the back, actually, in case you were curious. But I love. I mean, I
love that.
Please tell me that this was not Disney at its finest, though, with how it looks like it was written by a cartoon artist with the name and the number.
I actually think that's sick. I love Wild Wing is awesome, first off, but just the front it's so different. It's unique. It's cool. Wild Wing had his own toy line, all the things that all the kids in the 90s grew up with. I was, again, a little young for that. I did miss that calling because, again, I was born in late 98. So, but no, this jersey's sick. I love that. Kraken did a great job. Yes, it's black, but I think the only reason they had to do black is because if you wanted to glow in the dark, I think the black light is what it's supposed
and that's
to be.
why Vegas chose black for theirs too.
Exactly, but I don't think the black is necessarily a bad move for glowing in the dark. I think it actually makes it stand out more because of the green. The green pops, which I think Seattle did a phenomenal job with.
I'll be curious to see if they roll out black helmets and black gloves too to match the uniform set too. I'll be probably eager to see though what color they go with or what the stripes will look like on the socks for this jersey.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in to see kind of when they wear those jerseys, what they do for their intro. If they like turn the light up like a spotlight to see if like the chest will actually, like the front crest logo will actually glow in the dark. But if it's during the day, it's gonna be hard to see. Like I'm interested to see how it plays out. But I don't dislike that jersey at all. I actually think it's one of the better jerseys out there right now. So
Speaking, Jen, as we wrap up for the day, with what we've seen though, with like the Canes, the Kraken, the Bruins, you can't name your organization, Jen, but who probably would you say has the best uniform collection right now in the NHL? I think we may have talked about this once, but you can't name the Rangers. I can't name the Ducks. Who would probably, in your mind, have the best looking set of uniforms in the league, not named New York or Anaheim?
again, I like the Kraken right now, what they've been doing. I like the Vegas Golden Knights one. I think it's a different color palette than we've seen on any other jersey. So I think it stands out on its own. But I really like. I know this is gonna be horrible as a Ranger fan, but I like the Islanders. I like going back to the fisherman logo. I like the front crest of it. I like just what they've been doing, just keeping it very clean, simple, and clean. Like that's New York. Like it's very tradition based, and so I don't mind what the Islanders have done with their jerseys. I know I may get hate for that because as a Ranger fan, I know Ranger fans are very particular, but I don't love the Jersey Devils one. I think the Christmas one is kind of stupid looking.
Oh, the one that says Jersey on the front.
Yeah, and it's red and green and white and ugly and just yuck. It looks like someone threw up on it. Get that thing out of the league. Burn it with fire, please. I also think for me, it's got to be to Toronto. Like they're very classic and simple as well. Again, original six teams seem to have that theme.
Detroit, Montreal.
But I like Toronto. I like what they're doing. I like that they're trying to switch it up a little bit without losing the tradition of it. So I like what they're doing over there. I mean, there's so many good teams out there with so many amazing logos. Even going back to the Buffalo Sabres with the saber head.
Yes.
I love that. I think that one is like the best looking animal one out there.
I personally like Edmonton and Calgary. Actually, even Vancouver. I had a friend who his dad was a investor at one point in the Canucks, so I have a Canucks jersey when they were still blue and red back in the 90s, early 2000s. There's just something though about the Flames. I don't know what it is, but I think when they moved from Atlanta to Calgary, they kept the Atlanta Flames A for the captains before they changed it. And I think at one point the C may have also been the Flaming C, but I love the black flaming horse head jersey. That has been my all-time favorite logo for the Flames. And then Edmonton's also like tradition. I know they had that weird time where they were the more of like the copper orange and not the actual orange like they are now. But again, there's something about like Gretzky playing there, Messier, Yari Curry. There's something about that blue and orange, and then Vancouver. The blue and green's a little different. I was never a fan of the flying skate when they were black and yellow and red. When they were those, I'm like, oh, it's such a bad look. Seattle's also growing on me. I mean, the navy blue at home, the white uni's very clean when they come and play on the road. There's something about LA too. I don't know why, even though that like I don't like the Kings, but there's something about like the black and silver. But I grew up though when they were the black and purple era, like early Anze Kopitar, Dustin Brown, Ziggy Palffy, Matthias Nordstrom. When they had the shield, the cross sticks, and they had the LA Kings, and then they went to the crown. The Sharks probably when they were like early San Jose before they kind of redid the logo with the shark chomping. That logo is iconic. It's been that way since '91. The Penguins. I mean, at one point when they became a franchise, they were navy blue and gold, and before they went and adopted the black and gold. And there's something though about like Snoop Dogg, the Pittsburgh jersey, Dino. I actually loved the Robo Penguin in the '90s when it was the black uni. It had like the penguin feathers across the midriff or across the front of the uniform. That screams Mario Lemieux and Yarmio Yager. But again, they're like, but the tradition of like the skating penguin, the black, the black at home, the white away. Even Philadelphia is even kind of like that. Like again, it's the logo's not been touched since they became a club in '67. Has the shade of orange changed so many times over? Yes, it has. But I think you're right though too. Like tradition, Rangers, Maple Leafs, the Red Wings, obviously Montreal. I mean, even Ottawa going back to the the side profile of the Centurion Warrior. And that red jersey, by the way, Jen, also pops for Ottawa too. That just got unveiled too recently.
Yeah, I agree. But let's wrap up for the night. We are about that 8 o'clock time mark right now. But again, let's I want to push the NHL fantasy draft that we're gonna do September 22nd at 6 p.m. Eastern, hosted by yours truly. Kevin will also be there, but I will be doing most of the hosting.
Yes.
We'll have many friends with us. I believe I already have like 6 or 7 yeses. So that's happening. I promise it's happening. I teased it. It's happening. We have, after that, 3 episodes left of off-season mode before we finally get into in-season mode. We're very excited about that. It's coming. It's happening. We have a whole new layout of the show. It's going to run a little differently. There's going to be a lot more moving parts. I think this, the off-season is fun for us because we can just go to anywhere, anything. It's not really time-sensitive. The season's going to look a little different, a little more strict with the way we run things. Guests are going to be a little harder to get because we're going to be so to the time. So, but yeah, episode 15 in the books, Calvin. Again, I think we tease it every show, but how the hell did we end up here?
And we are getting renewed for episode 16 next Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. Once more, again, a major thank you to both Neil from the Devil State of Mind podcast and also Jeff from Mind Your Pucking Biscuit. Please support their work for the Devils and the Rangers. She is Jen Cater, New York. Cal McClurg here in San Diego. We'll see you all again next week back here on Puck Talk's 16th episode, leading into the leagues or the fantasy league draft the following week. And then we finally get to go into regular season mode, folks. Till next time, stay plugged in here and keep joining us here on playback.tv/EDB Network. We'll see you folks again next week.